If I knew then what I know now. Hey everybody, Average Picker here. So yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody and that kind of came up basically as a question from them. If I knew then what I knew now, what would I do different? And I thought, that's interesting enough to do a video on. So let's talk about that. So when I started out, I was really frugal. I was a very limited budget that I had at the time to start throwing at a new hobby. Now I will still contend, I think when you start out, you need to be ready to throw 50 bucks at it. Pretty much any new hobby, I think, in for 50 is kind of how you should look at it. But yeah, I was really careful with how I spent my money. And one thing I think I kind of got right going into it, I knew exactly what I wanted to be doing. My interest, I realized, was in single pin picking. And that was about it in the pin tumbler kind of realm. So a lot of stuff I didn't feel any kind of draw to buy, like any kind of bypass tools or, combs, getting into a lot of rakes. I do sort of regret a little bit that I didn't really get into rakes. You never see me rake in a video. And the reason for that is I'm really lousy at it. But I had no interest when I got started. And so that gave me the ability to resist a lot of stuff that looked kind of neat. But I would just go, well, that's neat, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in single pin picking. I'm interested in picks and tensioners. That was where I could focus. So I think on one hand, I got that sort of right. But there's probably some other things I kind of skewed and wish I would have done. Or I probably started falling into the thinking of, and sometimes I was able to pluck myself out of that thinking and go a different direction. One of those things is the idea of a magic pick that, you would look on a channel, especially some of the more popular large channels, and you'd see someone pick a lock and, they would knock this lock out in just a couple minutes and you'd think, oh, I've got to get that pick. I can't pick that lock unless I have that pick. And the truth is, there's some, generally speaking, there are some picks that work better in some locks, but you probably can still get by with a good solid basic short hook or, Tron or something like that. You don't have to have the pick that you see in the video. But I would find myself falling into that. I would, if I was struggling with a lock, I might look up and see someone else picking it. And I go, oh, I need that pick. Of course I can't do it. I don't have that tool. And that's not quite the case. So that was one thing I found myself kind of tumbling into a little bit. And with picks, I kind of wish I had maybe budgeted for a wider variety and diversity of locks over immediate, gains of buying a pick. So it's an easy trap to get into, especially if you are on a tight budget, or not necessarily if you're on a tight budget, but you're just unsure about the hobby still, and you're not wanting to throw a whole lot of money at it, and so you kind of trickle it in, because you can pick up a pick anywhere from $250 for a Southford sail up to about $795 for a Sparrows. I know Peterson and some other brands run, much higher, but the point is, there's this really reasonable range that's not very expensive. And so if you find yourself, at the end of the week or whatever, and you go, hey, you know what, I've got an extra 15 bucks to throw at lockpicking, and I want something lockpicking, I'm going to buy a pick. And what you're probably going to happen is you're going to end up buying a pick or two that you use 10% of the time, right? Or maybe you go, oh, I've got enough picks, and you run out and you buy a lock. Well, the problem is, you're just buying locks that are all kind of in this range because you're just spending that little bit of incremental money. And you get that home, you're going to have it picked in 30 seconds, right? And so I wish, I had thought about that longevity payoff, I guess, and saying, no, you know what? I don't really need these picks. I'm better off stashing that money and just waiting until it's built up to $30, $40 and maybe getting, going on eBay and getting an assortment of locks or investing in a better lock. So yeah, I kind of wish I had thought about that and planned out a little bit better for just getting a wider range of more diverse variety of locks, because I think there's a good payoff in that, it's really a good idea just to pick as many different locks as you possibly can, across the spectrum. But at some point you've got to realize you're beyond a certain level, right? You don't need to keep buying Master 3s. I know some people like to collect American 1100s, and I would say you don't, unless you're into collecting them, you don't really need 10 American 1100s. Get a couple, but get a couple something else and some other ones, mix that money up, and realize when you're kind of moving past and beyond a lot of these things. And later, if you're really into it, of course, you can come back and buy whatever. But I just think starting out wise, it's real easy to fall into this trap where you've got a little bit of cash to throw at the hobby. And so you end up buying a pick or something that you don't really need, or it's not going to get you that far. And not thinking about the long term of where you're going to want to maybe be with it. So there's that. I wish I had made a serious push into dimple picks, or into dimple picking, I guess, sooner. And a part of me almost wonders if I had started with dimple locks, where would I be right now? I put it off for a long time, and I started finally moving into it. And what I have found is I can pick some dimples. I'm not great at it. The consistency is not there for me that I want it to be. I can pull a lot of locks out and just go consistently. I know, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to get through this, and that's not there with the dimples. And part of me thinks it's just there's something right now lacking in my discipline to just sit down and go, you know what? I'm just going to plug away. I'm going to learn dimple locks, and I'm going to learn them like I've learned all these other more standard, pin tumbler locks. And but at the end of the day, I sit down, I start trying to do it, and I go, well, you know what? Let me just pull something out of here. There's plenty of other things in here I need to work on anyway, and improve my skill on, or get a little better with anyway. And I know I can pick that. So I find myself gravitating towards that, and the discipline right now is a little bit lacking. To just sit down and just really just focus only on dimples. And I think that's kind of what I need to do, because in a sense, it's when you move into it, it can be a lot like learning to pick again. And yeah, I think if I'd started doing that sooner when I was still struggling with other locks, or maybe even started with them, I would have had more of a regular shuffle there, and I would be much further along in feeling comfortable on a dimple lock. So I think that's if I knew then what I know now kind of thing. So thinking about dimple locks though, so these are Honest Dong dimple picks, and they're pretty much the budget choice for dimple picks. And I'm going to use these as to represent a broader example. I wish I had bought 2 sets of these. The reason being was I know these, when I got these, I knew they had to be modified, but I did not really know how or how much or why, right? All I knew was they had to be heavily modified. And so there's a little bit more now, not a whole lot of information out on it still though. But I only had the 1 set. They took about 68 days to get to me. I was really tentative about modifying them. You add to that a little bit of lack of experience with the Dremel, at least doing fine small work with metal, and it was just a recipe for disaster, because what it meant was I was really protective of these, and so I would just take a little bit of material off, because you can't add material, but I didn't know, am I not getting through the lock because I'm lacking the skill, or have I not modified these enough? Or have I modified them too much and they're just ruined now? And it created this thing, like there's too many variables involved. I just didn't really know, and I didn't really know what to do to them. So I think if I had bought 2 sets, I would have had 1 set I could have just experimented with and played with and thrown away, and then sat down and used these. So in that broader context, I would say I wish I had known or thought about that longer term payoff of investing in some little back end skills, buying extra cutting discs for the Dremel, and even just buying some cheaper metal to practice like making picks with. You don't have to jump in and get the immediate bestest thing, especially if you need to build up that skill set. You need something that's disposable, that you can practice on, that you can learn to make mistakes on, and then just chuck it and then go and sit down and actually produce something that's decent. Otherwise, you get into this area where every single little thing you make matters, because if you've not allowed yourself any room for screw up, right? Maybe you only have 5 feeler gauges and they're the best material ever, but you've only got 5 of them, and your budget is tight or whatever, and you've only got 2 cutting discs. Every little thing matters. There's no room for a mistake there, and face it, you may not know what you're doing. So you need to allow yourself room for mistakes, and just go ahead and invest in some material that can be chucked and thrown away, and you can screw around with and play around and experiment on, because that investment's going to ultimately have a bigger payoff, and you're going to produce something better later when you know what you're doing. And I would be amiss if I did not mention videos. It's weird because everybody watching this, I'm a smaller channel, everybody watching this is already picking. But one thing I wish I had done was I wish I had explored the lockpicking channels on YouTube more than I did when I started. Of course, I, like probably most of you, hit the main big 3, at least at the time. We've got a few others that are creeping up there now and getting pretty big. Another little shout out to you, Helpful Lockpicker. Your channel has been growing like crazy. It's awesome. But yeah, you've got Bosnian Bill, Lockpicking Lawyer, Lock Noob. Those are the main 3 I hit. And I think in some aspect it gave me the wrong feeling, I guess, or an unrealistic expectation. I think we'll go with that. It established an unrealistic expectation for me. And it was a little bit frustrating because you could go and you could look and you could see a lock get picked in 3 to 4 minutes or something, or less, a minute, less than a minute, and you've been working on that same lock for like a week or several days or something like that, and that I think in part loops around to magic pick. I need that guy's pick, and then I can do what he's doing. And yeah, I think there was an unrealistic expectation in there, and I wish I had found some of these smaller channels, because one of the things I started this channel for was I was like, you know what, I'm going to upload everything. If I fail to get it open, if I don't fail to get it open, if I've got a gutting disaster, whatever, I'm throwing it all in there. My frustration, my lack of frustration, whatever, it's going to go in the videos. And that was sort of part of me rebelling against what I was watching primarily on YouTube. That was, if you've really been watching or you've gone back in time, I used to have these cardboard signs even, and that was part of the whole thing. I was like, because they had all these flashy graphics that would move in, and I was using these cardboard signs. That was kind of part of that little rebellion against it. But as I started doing this channel, I decided, I'm going to start a subscription list, and it's only going to have lock pickers in it. And that's where I started discovering a lot of these other, for lack of a better term, smaller channels. And they were doing exactly what I wish I had been seeing at the time when I started. So yeah, it would be amiss to say I get into those smaller channels. And there's some fantastic, amazing pickers in there. That the channel size is not indicative of the skill. Let's put it that way. And yeah, it's gonna set your expectations much more realistically, I think, and you're going to be able to get a lot more information out of it and meet some just great people as well. And that's, a lot of people when they're starting out and they're just getting into it too, they wonder about how to get challenge locks and stuff. Well, that's how you're going to get them. You're going to contact, like someone like myself or, K1 or Albert LaBelle. I'm not trying to say you guys have small channels. I don't really know what your subscriber count is. I'm assuming it's lower than the big 3 to 5, I guess. But you're going to, you can contact them. That's how you're going to get trading. That's how you're going to get challenge locks and things like that. And you're going to meet some great people and get great advice and get a good, realistic view of lock picking, as opposed to something that's completely neat and tidy. So, yeah, get onto those channels. That is, I wish I had done that. If I had known that then, that as I know it now, even before I started buying picks and started investing money in the thing, I probably would have gone and just started marathoning a lot of those channels, because probably like a lot of people out there, I did this. I would marathon through Bosnian Bill and Lockpicking Lawyer and LockNoob videos. I would just terrorize through them, watching everything I could, and really I wish I had branched out and been watching more of all of your channels out there that is probably watching this. So, yeah, I am sorry that several years ago I was not watching your channels. No, but seriously. So there we go. Yeah, that's just my short little ramble on if I knew then what I know now. And maybe if you've got some stuff you kind of wish you knew then that you know now, by all means put it in the comments below. I'm not above pinning a comment up or whatever, or highlighting it, and or maybe do your own video on it. I guess it's probably good to keep videos like this kind of floating around just for the new people that float up, if it can catch one or two of them and give them some ideas and get them thinking a little bit with diving into the hobby. So yeah. You have a good one, guys. We are going to try to get some picking done, but it's been an unproductive day, and I don't see that changing. But we'll see. Maybe we'll get a late night pick in. All right. Have a good one.